Well, hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm Mark Graven. Today we're joined by John Paragon. He is a business coach based in the UK. He's focused particularly on coaching struggling fathers on discovering and launching their ideal business in 30 days. His website, you can find him, is at www.paragonhustle.com, and we'll learn a little bit more about that today. But John, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm keeping busy. Getting ready for Christmas now.
Yeah, well, it's time. Yeah, time to wind down a little bit, and it might be a mistake to be too busy. But yeah, coming
This
into
is
this
true.
time of year, to each their own. And we would tell the audience a little more specifically where you're located within the UK.
So I'm in Yorkshire, more specifically Leeds in the UK. So Yorkshire's known as God's country, I think it's referred to as. Uh, there's some pretty spectacular places in Yorkshire, not to be mixed up with London. It's quite a bit different up here, but I've lived here my entire life. Apart from 7 months I spent in London, I've lived in Yorkshire the rest of my life. So
Yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you could join us today. And so, before we talk about some of the work that you do and some of your other interests, John, what would you say is your favorite mistake?
I think I have a few, to be honest. I think I've made plenty of mistakes,
Yeah.
but I think I can always take something away from every mistake. One that springs to mind is rewinding a good few years ago when I decided to step into the entrepreneur journey that I'm on now, pretty much full time. I was influenced to leave my typical 9 to 5 job, so I left, and then I committed to never working a 9 to 5 again. And I decided to only ever control my business, my income, my future, my safety net, my security. And I decided to kind of go at it solo, which looking back now, given the opportunity again, I would never do again. I would never encourage other people to do it again, to drop out of their typical 9 to 5, to remove that safety net and that security, simply because it led me to have probably some of the most traumatic experiences over the space of a few years. I kind of drove myself into a deep pit of despair and shame and hatred and resentment for myself.
Mm.
I fell into a deep depression because I basically took on too much and I wasn't sure what to do next. But I certainly learned a hell of a lot from that. Now, where I'm at now, I'm glad I did it now just because of what I've learned from it, how much I've been able to progress, the pain that came from it. I can use almost every day now. I know exactly who I want my clients to be. I know exactly what I want to help them with. Everything that was traumatic and painful about that particular mistake, I have learned from it, and I use it almost every single day. So that is my favorite mistake of the big ones, anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let's go a little bit deeper into the story. I'm curious a little bit more of the details. I mean, if you can sort of help set the stage. How old were you at that point? What was your nine to
so
five
I'm
job?
33, rewinding about 6 years ago now, 5.5 years ago. So I worked for Hyundai. I worked as a new car salesman, and I worked there for about a year. I was actually nicknamed at this particular dealership. I was nicknamed Honest John, and this was from when I first started. All the salesmen had their names written up on the board, and everyone had forgot my surname, so they just wrote Honest John, and that was my nickname for the rest of the year I spent working there. But it was a type of dealership that everyone suspects salesmen are like, where they try to earn as much money on a sale as possible, and they will happily sell a customer the wrong car. They will sell cars that they know have issues, but the
Hmm.
customer will eventually come back. There was some really, really shady stuff going on there, and it just didn't work for me. And I think we
Yeah.
had we had many different managers over the space of a year. It's kind of going through new ownership, new transition, and each manager that came in went, John, that your approach to business, approach to commission sales work, commission based work, just doesn't work in car sales. It just doesn't work, and I refused to accept it. And it basically
Sure.
got to a point where I was heavily influenced to hand in my resignation. I think it was made clear that I wasn't wanted there just because of the approach that I took,
Hmm.
which I understood. At first I hated it. I think that they had made the wrong decision. I couldn't comprehend how they could want to remove someone like me who, I turn up to work on time, whereas every single person there did not. I came in clean. I came ready to go. I had full intentions of helping the customers.
Right.
I worked for repeat business,
Hmm.
and it didn't really work with that culture that was there. So yeah, this was about 5.5 years ago when this happened.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, to hear of you or anybody working in an environment where you feel like your own personal values are not aligned with the workplace. Did you get introduced to customers as, oh, here's Honest John, he's going to help you now, or that was just a behind the scenes
I did
thing?
on a few occasions actually, and
Yeah.
people ask why honest John, and I actually explained to a few customers that on a few occasions this is true. I actually downsold customers on cars
Hmm.
because the downsold version was a car that suited everything they needed.
Hmm.
Even though sometimes it made more profit for the company, but it was actually less revenue, less turnover. Um, so my managers didn't like it.
Yeah.
They're almost less concerned about the profit and the customer getting the right car. They were more concerned about larger amounts of money coming into the bank.
Right.
So I explained this to a few customers, and they always appreciated it.
Yeah, because you think, you talk about repeat business, that doesn't happen real frequently in the car business, but you'd think referrals, people could tell their friends and their family, and you think that could drive additional business through others. But
Yeah. Well, I really, really wanted to change the mentality that car sales doesn't get repeat business. I think car sales doesn't get repeat business because of the approach that the salesmen take, because of the
mhm,
kind of the culture that's established there, where they take as much money as they can with the assumption they're never going to see that person again anyway. So what's the
yeah,
point on being nice to them and creating repeat business? But I think that's why they never receive repeat business.
yeah. I mean, that falls in the category of what I would call a self-defeating, self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you believe
100%.
that to be true and you act that way, then of course it's going to be true.
Yep.
So what did you go into then as your first entrepreneurial venture? Was it the work that you're doing now, or was that something different?
No, so I didn't leave school at the appropriate age. I dropped out of school when I was 14, so I didn't leave school with any qualifications.
Mm,
Anything that, well, not much that I could transfer into later life. So I always had to be the person who came to work on time, presenting myself well, always looking for shortcuts for the business to make more money. I had to be that person to make it to any great level. So when I decided to go at things solo, I think it was more out of frustration and just deciding to take control of myself, my finances, my family. But I decided to step into network marketing, which I tried a few different things over the space of a few years. And I did stick with one company for quite some time, but eventually moved away from all of that. It was up until 3 years ago, so early 2017, I moved in. I became interested in cryptocurrencies, and I decided to create my own community of people that were interested in cryptocurrencies. We did peer-to-peer transactions, we did trade signals, we did any news on cryptocurrencies. We even arranged property sales via cryptocurrency. So it was meant to be a hub for all things crypto related. And gradually over time, the business kind of evolved based on the demand of the people in the group. But originally, when this all started, there was me and four other people in a Facebook Messenger group, and we'd tried a few different crypto things in the past. We decided the only way to secure our future, to make sure no one could run away with our money, is for us to learn to trade ourselves. But the downside to that is it can take anywhere between 2, 5, 10 years to gain the experience to do it.
mhm,
Not even thinking about the amount of money you would lose in a process to gain the skills to be able to do it efficiently, to rely on the profits from it.
mhm,
So we decided to hire a professional trader. At the time, we paid $2,000 per month for this trader. So between five of us, it was $400 per month that we were paying each. This trader had his own client base. When he submitted trades to his own clients and for his personal trades, we would copy them and post them in our group so we could all copy them too. Before long, there was another group of friends that decided they wanted to get involved. So now it was down to like $200 per month each because there were 10 people in the group. So we decided to hire a second trader and a third trader. Well, basically, what happened from there was that I realized this group was getting bigger and bigger. I decided instead of trying to manage the funds from everyone, I'll just charge people $97 per month. And no matter how many people are in the group, I would use 95% of the income that everyone's putting into a pot to hire more and more traders. So we did that. So eventually we had 5 or 6 traders and we had a group of about 50 people in the group. But no matter where people were in the world, they always thought they were missing the best trades. So whether you're in Australia or the UK or the US, based on the time zone that the traders were working, people would think, the best trades come while I'm sleeping or while I'm eating or while I'm at work. So we realized we wanted to create some automation.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually I put some of the money to one side that we were gaining from the subscriptions, and I hired someone to create a very, very simple app that automated the majority of the process of placing these trades for us. And then over time, that evolved more and more. More money came into the company, more subscriptions, and I just kept funneling. So originally, it was 75%, or eventually, sorry, 75% of the funds that came into the company went back to paying more for more traders,
Mm-hmm.
and the other 25% went to paying for the software development. So eventually, I ended up creating a completely automated trading solution where the professional traders sit on one side, the novice traders on the other, and then the software that sits in the middle. So I did that up until 3 months ago. I sold the majority of the company, so we're still in a transition process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be consulting for the next 3 months or so, and yeah, that was the big project that I never
Yeah.
expected to get that big, and
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like a success story. So, what led to what you described as this deep despair? Was it just the stress of not having a more certain paycheck? I mean, car sales being based on commission, there was at least some steady salary
well,
to
this
rely
kind of
on, or
happened after the car sales job. So once I
right,
decided to go at things alone,
right,
stepping into the multi-level marketing world was pretty scary, pretty tricky, a lot more difficult than I expected it to be. But there are a few things that contributed to it, really. My girlfriend was struggling with some mental things at the time. My little boy had just been born. So I had a 5-year-old, 6-year-old daughter at the time, and my little boy had just been born. My relationship was a mess. My mental state was a mess. My finances were a mess. I was in debt. I was about to tell the landlord that I couldn't pay the rent for the next month. I had the typical car that was breaking down every single week, and I was having to spend a fortune getting it fixed. It was just so many things, big or small, kind of hit me at one time, and I just got to a place where it almost seemed impossible to even get things back on track. And based on the type of person I am and the type of person I grew up as, surrounded by men who do not ever ask for help or are allowed to show any sign of emotions, I bottled it up for a while. I knew I couldn't speak to my girlfriend about it because she was struggling with her own things at the time. So I decided to ask for professional help. So I basically called the doctors and asked to book an appointment. I remember the lady who answered the phone. She asked what it was for, and I said it's personal. I don't want to discuss it. And to be honest, at the time, I didn't know what the issue was. I didn't know what I was going to speak about.
right,
So we booked an appointment. I went to the doctor's office, and I remember being called. We had to sit on this wooden bench outside the doctor's room before they open the door and invite you in. So I'm sat on this wooden bench, just sat there, and I remember this pit of the resentment and the shame, and thinking the doctor's going to come out, invite me in, and they're going to think I'm attention seeking, or that my problems are not that bad. Other people have got real issues. Why am I
right,
wasting doctors' time? These were the kind of things that went through my head.
sure,
So, and I still wasn't sure what I was going to say. I didn't know what the issue was. I just knew I was struggling and I felt defeated. So I remember the doctor opened the door, invited me in, a lovely lady. She sat down and I sat down opposite her. And she said to me, she says, "How can I help you today?" And up until this point, I still had absolutely no idea what I was going to say. But as soon as she said, "How can I help?" I opened my mouth, and the words that fell out were, "I failed." And those words that I said, I get goosebumps thinking about this now. As soon as I said them, I then realized what my issue was, and I felt like I had failed at every aspect of life that I was supposed to succeed at. I failed as a parent, as a partner, as a business person, as a good person. I failed at everything I measure a good person on. Is kind of where I saw myself. So
Hmm.
once I said that, I broke down. She quickly prescribed me some medication and gave me a phone number to speak to a suicide hotline, which fortunately wasn't something that had gone through my head at the time. I was lucky to not be in a position where that was a consideration. I'm grateful for that. I'm glad it
Right.
didn't get that far.
Right.
But I decided to call them anyway. And I was on a phone, I was on hold before I got to speak to anyone for 30 minutes. And I ended up putting the
Gosh.
phone down because even if they answered after 30 minutes, that could have been 29 minutes too long for someone who needed their help.
Right.
But I put the phone down and I carried on with the rest of my life for a while. I took the medication for about 9 months, and I realized after some time that the medication pretty much just removed the peak emotions, good or bad. So when things were terrible, it removed that peak of it. So it
Hmm.
wasn't quite as bad. But also the good stuff, it removed the ability to enjoy.
Yeah.
Because I had a newborn son, I struggled with the ability to enjoy him and
Right.
my relationship
Right.
and the business and stuff that I was doing. So I kind of just cut that out and it worked okay. I mean, over the next few years, my mood went up and down. And I've learned over the years now kind of the telltale signs of what influences this, what works for me, what I'm actually aiming for.
Hmm. Well, John, I mean, gosh, I appreciate you, sharing all of that. I really do. I mean, to me, to me, it's a sign of, it's a show of strength to admit a mistake, and that's where one of the themes of this whole series is for people to try to set that example, myself included, talking about mistakes. I think it also shows strength to ask for help. I hear what you were saying. Maybe the environment you were raised in, there are often kind of cultural norms around, like, well, yeah, asking for help is weakness,
Yeah,
and I appreciate you fighting through that, and for having the strength to share that with us here.
I appreciate that.
Um, so going back to sort of some of the things you reflected on from leaving a job and jumping straight into entrepreneurship. Um, what I'm curious what advice, I think this leads into the advice or what you would give to others. I'm curious. Your company and the website is Paragon Hustle. I don't know if in the UK there's a similar phrase. Here in the US, people in recent years talk about a side hustle, doing something, whether that's driving Uber or one of my other guests on the podcast, um, Dr. Greg Jacobson. He is a medical doctor who has for 10 years now had a software company that I'm involved with, a company called Kinexus. He started that. Most people have their side hustle at night. He was actually doing software company during the day and still working as an emergency physician
Wow.
at night, and that was part of his safety net. And yeah, I've heard different schools of thought. Some would say keep the job, keep the benefits. Like in the United States, health insurance is a
Yeah,
concern. I know that's different. There you have the NHS. But yeah, and there are some who say, well, if you don't fully commit to it, you might hold yourself back. I don't know what the right answer is. What are your thoughts? What coaching or approach do you recommend?
I think you've got to find a balance between the two that works for you specifically.
Hmm.
I will never recommend to someone go at it alone unless I know them on a deep level where I know they can make it work and they have at least somebody to coach them, someone who has already achieved what they are aiming for, that can help them get there in the most efficient manner possible. Again, I made the mistake of thinking I could do it on my own. And for
Hmm.
many years, up until the point where I built the previous company, I did everything on my own. I learned to run Facebook ads. I learned to build websites. I learned to build funnels. I learned to do all my own marketing. And I say learn, I learned the absolute basics enough to survive and pay the bills. But I
Hmm.
never really gained any traction because I was kind of just exploring and trying different stuff. I I don't know. I just didn't have the guidance to be able to do it. So more so in the US because you need it for the health insurance.
Hmm.
That's a huge deal.
Right.
I do strongly encourage people, every single person, to build some kind of side hustle, whether you are generating $250 per month or $1,000 or $2,500. Every person, I think, should have some kind of side hustle that they enjoy, that they can build up over time
Hmm.
until it's eventually big enough for them to sustain themselves consistently. Then they can look at reducing their hours in their typical day job,
Hmm.
or they can drop it completely. That's the most secure way to do it. And you don't need that many hours to build a side hustle, depending on which one it's going to be. You can build serious income with not too many hours.
Hmm.
But one thing that made a major difference for me is to actually hire the people who are experts in their field. So when it came to developing the software, I hired the professionals. When it came to the traders, I hired the professionals. Web design, I hired somebody. Marketing, I hired somebody. Even setting up the affiliate sales, I hired somebody to manage all of that because I genuinely believe you should do what you do best, figure out what your skills are, figure out where you specialize, focus on that, and outsource the rest of it. Get somebody else to do the rest of it.
Yeah.
It really does work long term rather than having the scarcity mindset where you think, I don't want to pay someone else to do this. I can do it myself. I'll build my own website. I'll run my own Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you've got yourself 10 jobs and it doesn't work long term.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and a previous guest, I'll point back to episode 21, Aaron Thompson. That was one of the things he talked about as being one of his favorite mistakes, trying to do too much of it
Yeah.
himself, and that seems like a common theme. And I've been guilty of that myself when it comes to podcasts and websites and things that I've done on my own. So that's a good reminder. Maybe coming into a new year to make a list. What are the things I should continue doing? What are the things that I should get help with?
I would strongly encourage to do that. I think it's incredibly important to understand what areas you work the best in and
Yeah,
focus on that.
yeah, yeah. One other question I have, your focus especially on fathers, coaching fathers who want to launch a business. Is there that connection because you're a father yourself and you have that desire to help others who are in that similar situation?
Yeah, very much so. So I think part of the struggles that I had when I started this journey, and I think that still has an impact on me now, to want to help people that have that extra commitment to fatherhood. Those people who do want to be able to spend more time with their families, who want to be able to provide more, but don't have. A lot of the time, I think it's the mental freedom to be able to do so.
Hmm.
Fathers feel like their comfort zone is in providing. That's their purpose. If they can do that well, that's their priority, then everything else is not quite as important. But if they can provide just as well with less time input, with less energy input, and allow themselves more mental tax, I guess, to be able to contribute to the families, that's kind of what I want to encourage. So, I mean, I sold my company very recently. I earn significantly less doing the coaching now than I did in a previous company.
Hmm.
But I do this because it kind of fulfills me a little bit more.
Sure.
I've got a good group of clients now, enough to keep me busy, enough for me to enjoy without getting swamped and being overwhelmed,
Right.
enough to live a reasonably comfortable lifestyle. I'm not doing it to earn loads and loads of money. I'm really not. Otherwise, I'd have kept my previous company. I'm doing it because I kind of want to contribute. I think all humans by nature want to be able to contribute, but we need to look after ourselves and our
Hmm.
families first before we can give back to other people.
Sure. Yeah, and to be part of something larger than yourself, and that can mean your community and in helping others and being of service. So that's great.
Yep.
That's great. So do you work with people exclusively in England or the UK?
No. So I think the majority of my clients are from the UK,
Hmm.
but I think that's because the majority of them have come from. I've worked with them in the past through previous projects or part of the previous company that I sold. So I've already built that reputation with them. They already trust me anyway. So the
Hmm.
majority of them are from the UK, but as time goes by, I am seeing more and more people from the US. And I don't think I have any clients outside of the UK or US, to be honest. Not yet, anyway. I'm open to a
Sure.
first.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, yeah. I mean, the website again, it's www.paragonhustle.com. I guess that .com kind of implies. Well, I mean, if it were .co.uk, that might
Yep,
say, "Hey, I help people in England." But with
yep.
the internet, and I imagine in this day and age with COVID, you're doing a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of virtual coaching. Is that right?
Yeah, so everything is pretty much done online.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do face-to-face meetings. I'm looking at organizing my own mastermind here in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
maybe eventually one in the US too. That would be pretty cool. But everything is done online. Everything's done as a done with you model.
Mm-hmm.
So it would help if we could do face-to-face. You having that extra bit of interaction as well.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that, and I think everybody enjoys that too. But at the moment, we kind of have to make online manage.
Great. Well, good. Well, again, our guest today has been John Paragon. John, thank you for sharing some really honest reflections. Thank you for sharing your story. That means a lot to me that you would do that. I'm sure that's going to help and inspire a lot of listeners. So again,
I hope so. Thank you very much for having me. I do
sure.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Be well.